Tonight's hot pockets of pain. Yanks take York for a walk in the woods. Oslo Airport takes off without passengers. And Chicago fire sale, everything must go. Plus, coming up, Berman's last stand. Was it the beer or the hills that brought him down? Those are the headlines. It's a mad, mad world.
News bang, nibbling away at the mouldy rind of propagandist fodder. 19 anti-18.
In a feat of military prowess that would make Rambo absolutely cack himself, Corporal Alvin York has single-handedly captured the entire German army, ending World War I with a rusty spoon and his trusty sidekick, Nutkin the Squirrel. York, armed with nothing but his southern charm and a terrifying glare, stormed through the trenches like a caffeinated gopher, taking on the Kaiser's forces one bratwurst at a time.
Eyewitnesses report York's battle cry of "Yeehaw" and "Hold the sauerkraut" sent German soldiers fleeing in terror. "We surrendered immediately," sobbed Private Gunther Schnitzel. "That squirrel was terrifying."
Military strategists are baffled by York's success. General Pershing was quoted as saying, "I have no idea what just happened, but I'm pretty sure it violates several international treaties and the laws of physics."
1998.
In a daring heist that would make Ocean's 11 look like a church bake sale, the city of Oslo has been caught red-handed attempting to smuggle an entire airport out of town. Eyewitnesses report the Fornebu airport, complete with runway, duty-free shops, and a suspiciously large meatball kiosk, being dragged through the streets by a team of Vikings on longboats.
Local resident Sven Svensson, who witnessed the spectacle while wearing his pajamas and a Viking helmet, exclaimed, "I thought I was dreaming, but no, it was just our airport making a run for it. They even took the meatballs."
The airport, disguised as a giant moose, was eventually cornered in a field north of the city. Officials, red-faced, claim it was all part of a strategic relocation. They insist the new airport will be called Gardermoen, which we are told is Norwegian for "Where did our airport go?"
1871.
In a fiery double disaster that's left the Midwest smelling like a barbecue gone wrong, both Chicago and Peshtigo, Wisconsin, have spontaneously combusted. Eyewitnesses report that Chicago is now one giant smouldering pizza, with flames reaching heights previously only seen in Spinal Tap concerts.
Local resident Mildred Soot, while fanning herself with a charred copy of the Chicago Tribune, said, "I'm not sure what's worse, the fire or the smell of burnt deep dish."
Meanwhile, in Peshtigo, the situation is equally dire. The entire town has been reduced to a pile of ash, leaving residents to wonder if they've accidentally wandered into Mordor.
Fire Chief Smokey McBlaze, while juggling flaming buckets, admitted, "We may have underestimated the flammability of Wisconsin."
News bang, pulling truth's teeth from deception's jaw.
And now, for a forecast more confusing than a set of assembly instructions written in hieroglyphics, it's the weather wizard, Shakanaka Giles.
Good evening, viewers. Down south, a right nip in the air. We're talking temperatures colder than a penguin's backside. If you're venturing out to that pumpkin spice festival in Cozy Cove, best wrap up warmer than a sausage roll in pastry. Over in the Midlands, the skies are looking gloomier than a teenager's bedroom. But fear not. Oktoberfest is in full swing, so there'll be plenty of oompa music and beer sloshing about to drown out those rainy day blues. Just mind you don't trip over any tipsy lads in lederhosen. Could be a right sausage fest. And up north, hold on to your hats, folks. The wind's howling like a werewolf with a toothache. It's a proper blusterfest out there, the kind that could turn your brolly inside out and send you flying off to Oz. If you're brave enough to venture out to the Scarecrow Festival in Haybale Hamlet, those scarecrows might come to life and chase you down. And that's all the weather.
And she coined 18.
It's 1918 and over in France, one Yankee Doodle dandy has just gone and single-handedly captured an entire battalion of Germans. Corporal Alvin York, armed with nothing but a rifle and a pair of cast-iron testicles, has redefined the meaning of overachiever. We go live now to our man on the muddy front lines, Brian Bastable, who's dodging bullets and bewildered Germans. Brian, is it true? One man against a battalion.
Martin, it's like a scene out of a particularly violent game of whack-a-mole over here, only with less whacking and more shooting. The Argonne Forest is a charnel house, Martin. The trees decorated with more body parts than a butcher shop window. And right in the middle of it all stands Corporal York, looking like a cross between a grizzly bear and a particularly grumpy angel. This bloke Martin, he's a force of nature. I just saw him take down 3 Germans with a single shot and then use a captured helmet as a teacup. The man's a legend. Those Jerrys are surrendering faster than French soldiers at a cheese tasting. They're waving white flags made from anything they can get their hands on. Underpants, handkerchiefs, even a couple of pages torn from a particularly racy novel. It's a sight to behold, Martin, a symphony of surrender. York's not just a hero, Martin, he's a bloody miracle. He single-handedly turned the tide of this battle, and those top brass back in Washington will be throwing medals at him like confetti at a wedding. This is Brian Bastable, Newsbang, signing off from a battlefield where one man has become an army. And the only thing more impressive than his marksmanship is his ability to brew a decent cuppa in a captured German helmet.
Le Tasty, 1998.
And now, a look back at this day in 1998 when Norway's capital Oslo bid farewell to its cosy Fornebu airport and embraced the sprawling behemoth of Gardermoen. In a move that can only be described as aeronautical musical chairs, Oslo swapped its quaint airstrip for a concrete colossus. The transition, smoother than a Norwegian fjord, saw planes, passengers, and probably a few misplaced suitcases shuttled overnight to their new home. Joining us now with more on this high-flying saga is our aviation correspondent, Hardiman Pesto.
Martin, I'm here at the grand opening of Oslo's new Gardermoen Airport, where the excitement is palpable. I'm joined by Norway's Minister of Transport, Bjorn Tore Godal. Minister, how do you feel about this momentous occasion?
Thank you. It's pronounced Bjorn Tore Godal. We are very proud of our new airport. It's a significant step forward for Oslo and all of Norway.
Pesto, can you give us some details about the new airport? How does it compare to the old Fornebu airport?
Well, Martin, it's certainly bigger, much, much bigger. In fact, I'd say it's at least twice as big as the old airport, maybe even 3 times as big. It's so big I got lost trying to find the bathroom earlier.
Pesto, we're looking for actual facts here. Minister Godal, can you provide some specifics?
Certainly. Gardermoen has a 3,600-meter runway, which is significantly longer than Fornebu's. Our new terminal can handle up to 17 million passengers annually, compared to Fornebu's capacity of about 6 million.
Yes, that's what I meant by bigger, Martin. It's so big, I heard they're thinking of renaming it Gardermoen. Get it? Because it's more airport.
Pesto, please. Minister Godal, what about the economic impact of this new airport?
We expect Gardermoen to be a major boost for the region's economy. It will create jobs, improve connectivity, and support tourism and business growth.
Speaking of growth, Martin, I've noticed something peculiar. The runways here seem to be growing. I swear they're longer now than when I arrived this morning.
Pesto, runways don't grow. Minister Godal, how would you respond to concerns about the environmental impact of a larger airport?
We've implemented several measures to minimize environmental impact, including noise reduction technologies and...
Oh, I can vouch for the noise reduction, Martin. It's so quiet here, I can barely hear the planes. In fact, I haven't seen a single plane land or take off since I arrived. Are we sure this is actually an airport?
Pesto, you're at the airport's opening ceremony. Of course, there aren't any flights yet. Minister Godal, final thoughts?
We're confident that Gardermoen will serve Oslo and Norway well for many years to come.
Well, I, for one, am excited to fly out of here, although I might need a map to find my way back to the studio. Martin, can you send a search party if I'm not back in a week?
Pesto, just follow the signs. Thank you, Minister Godal. That was Hardeman Pesto, hopefully finding his way out of Oslo's new Gardermoen Airport.
1871.
And now, a fiery flashback to this day in 1871, when America found itself in a rather hot situation. The Great Chicago Fire and Peshtigo Inferno blazed through communities faster than a politician through campaign promises. Wooden buildings, dry conditions, and a cow with a penchant for pyrotechnics conspired to create a perfect storm of combustion. The aftermath left city planners scratching their heads and firefighters demanding better equipment and possibly hazard pay. For more on this historical conflagration, we turn to our American correspondent, Melody Wintergreen.
Chicago, 1871. Melody Wintergreen here, reporting from the smoldering remains of a city. The Great Chicago Fire, a spectacle of destruction, has left the windy city gasping for air, its skyline replaced by a smoky shroud. It all started with a cow, a lantern, and a whole lot of bad luck. Or so they say. One kick, one spark, and Chicago became a tinderbox waiting to explode. Fanned by gale force winds, the flames danced through the streets, devouring everything in their path. Firefighters, those brave souls, fought valiantly, but they were outmatched, outgunned, and outhosed. The screams of terrified residents echoed through the smoke-filled streets as families watched their homes and livelihoods reduced to ash. It was a scene straight out of Dante's Inferno, with a distinctly Chicagoan twist. But Chicago wasn't alone in its fiery fate. Miles away, in Peshtigo, Wisconsin, another inferno raged. The Peshtigo firestorm, fueled by dry forests and howling winds, became a veritable apocalypse, wiping entire towns off the map faster than a politician can break a promise. The combined toll? Staggering. Thousands dead, their dreams turned to ashes along with their homes. The destruction so complete, it's hard to imagine these cities ever rising again. But from the ashes, hope flickers. Chicago and Peshtigo, showing the resilience of the American spirit, are already starting to rebuild. New fire codes are being written, and the lessons learned are being etched in the charred remains of a nation's hubris. So, as the embers glow, we remember those who faced the flames, those who lost everything, and those who, from the ashes, will rebuild. Melody Wintergreen, Newsbang News, from the scorched earth of Chicago, where the fire may be out, but the spirit of this city still burns bright.
News bang, taking a tenderizing mallet to the hardened carcass of propaganda. 1956.
And now, for a look back at a historic moment in baseball, here's our sports correspondent, Ryder Boff, with a special report on Don Larsen's perfect game in the 1956 World Series. Ryder, take it away.
Right then, sports fans, Ryder Boff here with a tale from the baseball diamond that's more astonishing than a fly fishing a salmon. It's 1956 Game 5 of the World Series. Yankee Stadium is buzzing like a beehive on a hot summer's day, and Don Larsen, a pitcher for the New York Yankees, is about to etch his name in the annals of baseball history. Larson winds up a rocket of a pitch. Strike one. That Brooklyn Dodger batter didn't even see it. Larson's on fire today. He's got those Dodgers hitters dancing like puppets on a string. Another pitch. A beauty. Strike two. Larson's pitching is more unpredictable than a roulette wheel in a hurricane. But by Jove, it's working. Inning after inning, Larson dominates the game. His pitch is whizzing past those Dodger bats like meteors. The crowd is on the edge of their seats. The tension is thicker than a London fog. Could this be a perfect game? Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. The score still tied at 0. The pressure is on, folks. It's all down to this. Dale Mitchell, the Dodgers pinch hitter, steps up to the plate. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. Poor lad. He looks like he'd rather be facing a dentist's drill. The wind-up, the pitch, strike 3. He's done it. A perfect game. A feat more extraordinary than a Scotsman refusing a free pint. The stadium erupts in a frenzy of cheers. Hats are flying. Champagne corks are popping. And somewhere, a hot dog vendor is probably having a nervous breakdown. Don Larson has achieved baseball immortality. It's a moment more magical than a unicorn winning the Grand National. As for me, well, I'm off to celebrate with a nice cup of Bovril and a packet of crisps. This is Ryder Boff, signing off.
Polly Beep joins us now. What chaos awaits us on the roads and rails tonight?
Evening, my little road warriors. Polly Beep here, your girl on the go with a traffic update that's more tangled than a plate of spaghetti after a toddler's finished with it. First up, Harrow and Wealdstone Station. 3 trains have decided to have a little get-together on the same track. It's a train sandwich, folks, and the filling is commuters. Expect delays longer than a politician's promise. And if you're heading north, pack a picnic and a deck of cards. You might be there a while. Across the continent, in Milan, Italy, we've got a mid-air mishap. A Scandinavian Airlines plane and a Cessna decided to play chicken at Linate Airport. Someone forgot to check their blind spot, and now there's more twisted metal than a heavy metal concert. Avoid Milan, unless you're a fan of impromptu fireworks displays. Back in Blighty, the M25 is living up to its reputation as the world's largest car park. Traffic's moving slower than a snail in a headwind. They're thinking of introducing a new lane for tortoises. Avoid the M25, unless you're a fan of exhaust fumes and existential despair. And finally, a warning for anyone braving the magic roundabout in Swindon. Llamas on the loose. That's right, folks. A herd of woolly wanderers has escaped from a nearby farm and is causing havoc on the roundabout. They're reportedly spitting at motorists and demanding to know the way to Machu Picchu. Avoid Swindon, unless you're a fan of llamas and surreal roadside encounters. This is Polly Beep, signing off. Drive safe, my dears, and avoid anything that looks remotely like a llama.
The day in 1604.
And now, for a stellar report on an explosive anniversary, we turn to our science correspondent, Calamity Prenderville.
Good evening, stargazers and supernova enthusiasts. Today marks the 420th anniversary of Kepler's supernova, the last celestial fireworks show visible to the naked eye in our very own Milky Way.
Back in 1604, this cosmic spectacle lit up the night sky brighter than any star and was even visible during tea time. It's said that British astronomer Sir Nigel Poppycock first spotted it while adjusting his monocle, mistaking it for an exceptionally shiny sixpence.
Now, you might think this supernova was discovered by that chap Kepler, but let me tell you a secret. It was actually first observed by a group of British pensioners during their weekly bingo night. They thought they'd won the jackpot when they saw this new dot appear.
Thanks to British ingenuity, we've learned that Kepler's supernova was a type Ia supernova. What does that mean, you ask? Well, imagine, if you will, a white dwarf star gorging itself on its neighbour's matter like a pensioner at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Eventually it becomes too greedy and explodes.
Today, the remnant of Kepler's supernova is still visible through telescopes, looking rather like a cosmic Yorkshire pudding. British scientists at the Baked Goods Observatory in Nether Wallop have been studying it intensively, hoping to unlock the secrets of the universe, or at least a really good pastry recipe. So tonight, why not step outside, look up at the stars, and remember, the next time you see a bright new dot in the sky, it might just be the universe's way of saying, surprise. This is Calamity Prenderville, wishing you clear skies and bright supernova. Back to you in the studio.
Eddie, news bang. A slap in the face with the wet towel of reality. 451.
And finally tonight, on this day in 451 AD, the Council of Chalcedon convened to settle a most pressing theological quandary. Was Jesus more divine than human, or vice versa? In a stunning display of compromise, they declared him both, fully. This decision, now known as the Chalcedonian definition, has left theologians scratching their heads for centuries. One can only imagine the heated debates and celestial arm wrestling that must have occurred. For more on this earth-shaking event, we turn to our faith correspondent, Pastor Kevin Monstrance.
Blessings and salutations, my dear flock. Before we dive into the theological depths, I must share with you the latest escapades of our beloved producer, Martin Chalcedon Chuzzlewit. Last week I found him in the green room, trying to convince the catering staff that he was the long-lost heir to the Byzantine throne. He even fashioned a crown out of tin foil and declared himself Emperor Marcian the Magnificent. I had to gently remind him that the Byzantine Empire fell in 1453 and that his only dominion was over the coffee machine and the occasional stale biscuit. But I digress. Let us turn our attention to the year 451 AD, a time of great theological tumult and questionable fashion choices. The Christian world was in quite a tizzy over the nature of Christ. On one side we had Nestorius, who argued that Christ had two separate persons, one divine and one human. Imagine trying to schedule a dinner party with that duo. Sorry, Jesus the human can't make it, but Jesus the divine is available. Talk about a split personality. On the other hand, we had Eutyches and his band of monophysites who claimed that Christ had only one divine nature. They believed that his humanity was absorbed into his divinity like a cosmic sponge. I tried explaining this concept to my wife using a slice of bread and a glass of wine, but she just looked at me like I was proposing a new diet fad. Amidst all this theological chaos, the Council of Chalcedon was convened. Bishops from far and wide gathered to settle the matter once and for all. The atmosphere was tense, the robes were itchy, and the incense was making everyone a bit light-headed. Emperor Marcian himself was in attendance, probably wondering how he got roped into this celestial debacle. After much deliberation and a few too many chalices of sacramental wine, the council reached a decision. They proclaimed the doctrine of the hypostatic union, affirming that Christ has two natures, fully divine and fully human, united in one person. It was like a divine version of a turducken, but with less stuffing and more eternal significance. This ruling became known as the Chalcedonian definition, a term that strikes fear into the hearts of seminarians and spelling bee contestants alike. The council also established the Chalcedonian Creed, which is still recited in churches today. Although, I must admit, I sometimes get a bit lost around the part about consubstantial with the Father. I keep picturing the Holy Trinity playing a cosmic game of Twister. The Council of Chalcedon was a turning point in Christian history, setting the stage for future theological developments and heated debates at church potlucks. It's a reminder that even in the face of complex doctrinal disputes, the church can come together and find unity in Christ. Although I do wonder what those early church fathers would have made of our dear producer's antics. I can just imagine Nestorius and Eutyches putting aside their differences to give Martin a stern talking to about proper headwear etiquette. And that brings me back to the joke I've been weaving through this homily. You see, after the council, Emperor Marcian decided to celebrate by throwing a grand feast. He invited all the bishops and their entourages, including a certain Bishop Eusebius and his rather peculiar deacon. As the festivities were underway, Marcian noticed the deacon sitting in a corner, looking rather perplexed. He approached the young man and asked, "What troubles you, my son?" The deacon replied, "Your Grace, I've been pondering the Chalcedonian definition, and I just can't seem to wrap my head around it. Two natures in one person? It's like trying to fit a camel through the eye of a needle." The emperor smiled and said, "Ah, but that's the beauty of faith, my boy. Sometimes we must embrace the mystery and trust in the wisdom of the church." "But, Your Grace," the deacon persisted, "how can we be sure that this is the right understanding of Christ's nature?" Emperor Marcian thought for a moment, then leaned in close and whispered, "Because, my dear deacon, if we got it wrong, I'm sure God would have sent us a divine memo by now. And trust me, I've checked my inbox." The deacon's eyes widened, and he let out a laugh. "I suppose you're right, Your Grace. If the Almighty had an issue with our theology, he would have certainly let us know." And with that, the emperor and the deacon rejoined the celebration, their faith renewed and their spirits lifted. Because sometimes, even in the midst of theological turmoil, a little bit of humour and perspective can go a long way. So, my dear friends, let us take a page from the Council of Chalcedon and embrace the beautiful complexity of our faith. And if ever you find yourself struggling with a particularly tricky doctrine, just remember, if God had a problem with it, he'd have sent us a celestial carrier pigeon by now. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Turducken, Amen.
And finally, a look at tomorrow's papers. The Times. Japanese forces pushed back at last in Solomon Islands. There's a photograph there of a sandy beach. The Telegraph go with world's tallest building open for business in Washington. The Mail lead with spooky musical hits London's West End. The Mirror have mice menace at women's cake shop. And finally, the Express. White whale still loose in Scotland. That's it. And an extremely tired evening to you all. The toilet light is still on in the foyer, so you can see to find your way out.
Tune in next time for more artificially intelligent hilarity. Newsbang is a comedy show, written and recorded by AI. All voices impersonated. Nothing here is real. Good night.